She was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it cost her her life. Hello, true crimerers. This is another true crime in a short amount of time, and it is the case of Alexandra Zapp. Viewer discretion is advised. Alexandra Nicole Zapp, who would go by Allie to everyone in her life. She was born on August 24th, 1971, and she was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. After graduating high school, she would attend the University of Oregon, where she spent about 2 years. And then I guess she accepted some kind of editing position that was in Boston, Massachusetts, and so she moved, basically almost across the country. Allie was the type of person who always thought of others before she ever thought of herself. She was a very, very charitable person. She dedicated a lot of her time and donated financially to several charity organizations. She also loves sailing, and not only did she love sailing, she loved to teach people how to sail. She actually volunteered at the Courageous Sailing Center, and she taught children about sailing. She also would donate money and her time at the Boston Ballet. Her love of sailing is ultimately what would bring her to Newport, Rhode Island, where she accepted a new job, I guess with a company called U.S. Sailing. She did that for some time, and then at the time that this story actually takes place, she was making plans and all the preparations to actually move to New Zealand for a sailing opportunity. And I guess it was going to be on the America's Cup boat. On July 18th, 2002, Allie was in Boston for a charity event. And then when the charity event was over, she was going to be driving back home to Rhode Island. On the way to Rhode Island, she stopped at a rest stop. This was on Route 24, and the rest stop was also a part of like a Burger King restaurant. So she had stopped in, I believe, to just use the restroom. And so she walked through the Burger King entrance and then walked into the ladies' room. A short time later, there was a gentleman in the men's room who heard some scuffling and like a muffled scream coming from a woman that he believed was coming from the ladies' room. The man, the witness, was named Stephen O'Reilly. He just so happened to be a police lieutenant who at that time was just off duty. He approached the women's room and he saw what looked like a little bit of blood kind of coming out from underneath the door. And so he took his gun out and he slowly opened the door. And when he did, he saw a relatively large man standing next to the sink, covered in blood. And on the ground was the body of a female. And she was covered in blood and lying in pools of blood. So at that point, Lieutenant O'Reilly arrests this man who did this, calls an ambulance, calls first responders. Unfortunately, the woman on the ground was already deceased. That woman was Alexandra Allie Zapp. Alexandra had been stabbed not just once or twice, but many, many times. She had stab wounds to her arms, to her chest, and around her neck. This was a violent, vicious attack. So who was the man? Well, his name was Paul Leahy. Paul Leahy was an employee of the Burger King at that rest stop. Essentially, he was arrested. He was brought in for questioning, and at first he said he didn't do anything. He had just stabbed her in the arm, and then that's it. But then they said, well, we can tell you that she was stabbed many more times, including in the chest. And that's when he kind of came clean and said, okay, I stabbed her there too. He was an employee at the Burger King, and he said he had just happened to see Allie walk into the Burger King, and he just immediately thought to himself, I need to go do something. What his intentions truly were it to rob or sexually assault, murder? It's not exactly clear, but he then watched her go into the bathroom, and then he left, the kitchen area of the Burger King, walked in front of the ladies' room, and just stood there and waited for Allie to open the door. When she did, he was there blocking the door, holding a knife, and then he forced her back into the bathroom. And then he just stabbed her. Again, for what reasons? He didn't sexually assault her, and there was no attempt, at least, to steal anything. Despite later on his lawyers, who wouldn't deny that he killed her, his lawyers would eventually say, basically, well, the intent was just to rob her and things just got out of hand. And so that's why he did what he did. But there was never any evidence to show that he had tried to steal anything. The evidence against him was incredibly overwhelming because you had this police officer who literally caught him in the women's room, literally red-handed, like with blood on his hands, covered in blood with a knife and everything. It was clear it was him. Paul Leahy had a history, believe it or not, a very violent history, dating all the way back to the 80s. He had multiple run-ins with the law. He had convictions of sexual assault, and several of his victims were under the age of 18. His youngest victim was about 13 years old. There, I guess at the time, wasn't necessarily strict laws in place to prevent people like him from working in certain places, and you know the drill. People with like a history of sexual assaults, at least here, well, we don't always necessarily keep a very watchful eye on them, from a legal standpoint. But the fact of the matter is he was employed by this restaurant. He saw a woman and he attacked her and murdered her for his own unknown reasons, but he did it. A man forced a woman back into the women's room and just brutally killed her. So he would go on trial, and on September 24th, 2003, Paul Leahy was found guilty of the murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Allie's mom and Allie's mom's, newer husband, they had moved from Portland to Boston after all of this happened. And in Boston, they founded something called the Allie Foundation. It's a charity organization meant to, prevent opportunities for sexual offenders to reoffend. And the goal of the organization, or one of the goals, is to just make sure that people with this type of criminal history are kept an eye on, like that we're making sure that they aren't going to do what they did again. The Allie Foundation also works in conjunction with, a sailing charity in order to, honor Allie in that regard as well, for something she loved to do. And that way, Allie Zapp will never, ever, ever be forgotten. But that is it for this case. True crime, a rooney dooney ding dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you have tripped, fallen, and stumbled your way into this video, hello, I'm Mike. I tell 4 true crime stories here on YouTube a week. I also tell one over on Facebook and one over on Instagram every week, and then a few throughout the week over on the Tickle My Talk Yuck. All of the links to all of my socials are in the description below in the link tree. Please subscribe to me here on YouTube and give this video a like to push it out to the YouTube universe so people can see it. Next, if you have a case you would like me to cover, please send me an email to mikey@truecrimerer.com. It's listed below. Go to my case list in my link tree, scroll through the massive list, it's alphabetical, and look for the name you want me to cover. If you don't see it there, then email me the name, where it happened, when it happened, and then I can add it to my list. If you do already see the name on there, don't email me the name. I already have it on there. I picked the cases I cover at random. I will get to it eventually, I just don't know when. There's a lot of names, so it's going to probably take a while. Thirdly, if you would like to support me anyway, we do sell merch. We sell t-shirts and hoodies and wine glass and stuff like that. We have some newer designs and looks. We do ship internationally throughout the entire world. It's all made and shipped by my good old buddy Adam. He is amazing. If you have a Discord account and you want to join my Discord server, it's also linked below. Please be over the age of 18 though if you're going to join it, or else you'll be kicked out of that place, you poo-poo heads. And to finish this video, let's do a round of live, laugh, lose, huh? Not a sponsor, but I have this game where you have to read a joke, a dad joke basically, and you have to do it in whatever the delivery card is. All right, let's see what we got. Oh shit, this is kind of perfect actually. Read the joke in Batman's voice. Here's the joke. How does a penguin build its house? It glues it together. It glues it together because it's a penguin. The penguin is how stupid. How stupid. Okay, well, I can't stop doing the voice. Goodbye, everyone.